Jonathan Gray from Strategy Research joins us once again to talk about the question on everybody's mind: who is leading in the race between Roy Moore and Doug Jones in the U.S. Senate seat? So let's stop the suspense and take a look at the numbers that we have. And as you can see, Roy Moore is still leading here over Doug Jones, 49% to 43%. But you can see some attrition over here in his support. Jonathan?
Yeah, we can look at the numbers here in red. When we polled back in October, Roy Moore was at 52 to 41. He had an 11-point advantage. When we polled last night with 3,000 voters in Alabama, we're looking at that lead changing. He's essentially lost 3 points. Doug Jones has picked up 2 points, and you see down here we've moved 1 point to the undecided. That's a big deal, because now, what we've talked about earlier tonight, the undecideds are going to come in. This 49 number, Bob, that's big because he's not over 50%, which means we're still open. And if you take the undecideds, and if they all went to Doug Jones could win. He gets 8% of the vote. He can end up winning this race at 51%. Of course, if they all go to Roy Moore, then of course we don't have to worry. If you're a Republican and if you're a Democrat, you're going to be scratching your head going, what happened?
Right. This
race is going to come down to the undecideds. It has definitely gotten tighter.
All right, let's take a look at typical Democrats who are voting in our next slide. And you can see Doug Jones picked up a little bit support and Roy Moore dropped a little bit of support.
This is not going to be a big change. Democrats, for the most part, we've seen over the summer, they were already voting for their Democrat nominee. They were pretty strong when they came out. Roy Moore, however, what little bit of Democrat support he had is eroding. It's cut in a third, from 6% to 4%. But down here in the undecideds, these are Democrats who didn't know who they were going to vote for. Look at the change. It even went down a point. You're starting to see what if you were a Republican. A week ago, we were seeing in Roy Moore. You're now seeing in Doug Jones that consolidation.
All right, let's look at the Republicans who are likely to vote. And again, look at the attrition here, between 78% down to 70% among Republicans.
Well, and let me say this, if you're a Republican at home and you're wondering how this affects you, that 78% to 70% you just saw on the screen, a lot of that went to the undecided voters. It's not all going to Doug Jones. So if there's a bit of breath of air before the fall, this is it. I think people are giving the Moore campaign an opportunity to explain what's going on, maybe win back some credibility. But let's also look that Jones, amongst Republicans, went up 3 points. We talked back in October that he was getting about 12% of the Republican vote. That's up to 15% now. This undecided, it's now at 15%. If they move over here, you're looking at essentially a 70-30 split in the Republican Party. We've never seen this before.
Okay, here's a really important graphic next. Which party primary do you typically vote in? And this really shows that our first poll was solid, and so is our second one.
Yeah, we use this as kind of a benchmark to make sure that even though we called a totally different group of 3,000 in October.
Across the state.
Across the state, we called a completely different group of 3,000 this time, and those numbers are the same. But Bob, look at the Democrat number and look at the undecided. And if we go back to the summer and look at these numbers, that Republican number was actually higher. And what we're hearing out of Washington is some people say the Republican brand is being hurt by all this fighting, not just the allegations against Roy Moore, but going back to the summer with Luther Strange. Now, we don't see that here in the 61%, but if you look back to these numbers in the summer, you'll see a degradation from where we were. But this 32 and 33 and this change in the undecided, this is a concern for people inside the party. Are the Republicans starting to lose a little bit of the shine on their brand in Alabama?
All right, Jonathan Gray from Strategy Research, thank you very much.